At my niece's birthday party, my brother gave a toast and said, "Let's just hope she doesn't grow up bitter like some people in the family." Everyone laughed. My mom clinked her glass. I had just had a miscarriage. No one asked me how I was. No one even looked at me. 3 months later, that same niece called me from school crying, saying, "They forgot to pick me up. Can you come get me? You're the only one who answers. I want to share what happened to me. Maybe it'll make someone out there feel less alone. Maybe it'll just be a way to finally say what I never got to say out loud." Either way, this is my story. And it starts with one of the worst days of my life. 3 months before everything blew up, I lost my baby. I had been trying to get pregnant for years. Mark and I were careful, hopeful, scared to get our hopes up, and then, finally, a positive test. I cried when I saw those 2 pink lines. He cried too. We named the baby in our heads, picked out a room, argued about crib colors. Then, just like that, it was gone. 10 weeks in. No heartbeat. A cold ultrasound room. My body didn't even know it had let go. I had to take pills to make it complete. That's what the nurse called it, complete. I didn't feel complete. I felt shattered. The worst part? No one in my family asked how I was. I sent a text to my mom and my brother Dave. Told them I lost the baby. They didn't reply. Not even a sorry. I thought maybe they didn't know what to say. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. That was a mistake. It was July. Hot, sticky Midwest summer day in Cedar Rapids. My niece Lily was turning 10, and there was this whole party in my brother's backyard, grill going, lawn chairs out, one of those cheap rented bouncy houses. I showed up because Lily had always been sweet to me. She'd make drawings for me when I visited, call me on my birthday, ask about the baby before I lost it. I didn't want to let her down. I showed up hollow. Mark stayed home, he couldn't face it. I put on jeans, a tank top, some lip gloss to cover up how pale I looked. I tried to smile. Pretended the pain in my stomach was just cramps, not memories. Then Dave stood up with his stupid beer bottle and said, "Let's just hope she doesn't grow up bitter like some people in the family." People laughed. Even my mom. I saw her raise her glass and smile like she was proud of it. Like it was some inside joke I wasn't supposed to hear. My whole chest went cold. I didn't say a word. I just stood up and left. No one stopped me. No one even texted later to check in. I went home and sobbed into the couch cushions so hard I threw up. 3 months went by. Not a word from any of them. I started going to therapy. Mark and I were barely talking. I felt like my body had betrayed me. My family had, too. Then in mid-October, my phone rang. Unknown number. It was Lily. "Auntie," she sniffled, "can you come get me? They forgot to pick me up again. You're the only one who answers." She was crying. I could hear the wind in the background. I didn't ask questions. I just said, "Where are you?" When I pulled up to the school, she was sitting on the front steps with her backpack in her lap. Everyone else was gone. Her eyes were red, her nose was runny, and she looked like she'd been crying for hours. I called Dad first. Then Mom. Then Grandma. No one picked up, she said. I gave her my hoodie to wear because she was freezing. We went to a drive-thru for chicken nuggets. She didn't eat much. Mostly just stared out the window and held my hand the whole way back. After that, it started happening more. Once a week at least. Missed pickups. Forgotten lunches. Late nights where Lily called me and said no one was home yet and she didn't know when they'd be back. She never told me to say anything. She never even asked for help. But she'd say things like, "You always come when I need you," or, "Sometimes I think you're the only one who sees me." I started keeping track. Every date she was left waiting. Every voicemail she left me. Every conversation where she mentioned missing dinner, being forgotten at school, or overhearing her mom say she was too much to deal with. I kept it all. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. But I knew what neglect looked like. And I knew Lily deserved better than this. I asked Lily if she'd be okay talking to someone about how things felt at home. She said yes. Quiet, but clear. I found a therapist. A family trauma specialist in town. She was warm, smart, and kind. She believed Lily. She listened. She took notes. She thanked me for coming forward. Then she did what she was legally supposed to do. She made a report to Child Protective Services. Dave and his wife didn't take that well. It was a Thursday night when Dave finally called. Screamed at me for almost 6 straight minutes. "You're trying to destroy my family. What's your problem, huh? Couldn't have your own kids, so now you're trying to steal mine?" That one hit deep. But I didn't yell back. I just let him scream. Then I said, "Lily deserves better than to be treated like a burden." Click. He hung up. After Dave's call, everything started unraveling faster than I expected. First, my mom called. Not to ask how I was. Not to talk about Lily. Just to accuse me of causing drama. She said, "You've always been too sensitive. You blow things out of proportion." I stayed quiet for a second. Then I said, "You raised me to take care of family. That's what I'm doing." She hung up too. 2 days later, Dave and his wife posted this long, passive-aggressive status on Facebook. Something about family members who think CPS is their personal revenge squad. All the usual people commented with "praying for you and stay strong." One of my cousins even tagged me and said, "You should be ashamed." I didn't reply. I wasn't interested in Facebook fights. Instead, I focused on Lily. One night, Lily stayed over at my place. She was curled up on the couch watching a cartoon. Out of nowhere, she asked, "Do you think my parents hate me?" I sat down beside her. "Why would you think that?" She looked down at her knees. "Sometimes, when they forget me, or when they yell. I think if I just disappeared, they wouldn't notice." I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from crying. "You matter," I told her. "You're not invisible. Not to me." She just nodded. I held her hand. That night I cried silently in the kitchen. Mark found me there. He hadn't been around much. We'd barely talked since the miscarriage. But he put a hand on my back and just stood with me. We didn't need to say anything. The next week, Lily stopped answering my texts. Her phone went straight to voicemail. When I called the house, no one picked up. Then I found out they'd taken her phone away. Changed the pickup list at her school so I was no longer authorized. The school called me to let me know they were legally required. I was furious. I sent Dave one text, "Taking her phone doesn't change the truth. It just shows you know you're wrong." He didn't answer. But the next day, CPS called me. Someone had reported me for emotional manipulation and trying to take custody of a child without consent. I laughed when I got off the phone. It wasn't funny. But it was so predictable. They were trying to flip the script. But they forgot, I kept everything. I emailed CPS a folder of everything I'd been keeping: dates, times, voice recordings, missed pickups, and the contact info of the therapist Lily had been seeing. Within 48 hours, a caseworker called me back. "We appreciate how thorough you've been. This helps us build a much clearer picture." They weren't investigating me anymore. They were investigating Dave and his wife. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who had raised concerns. One of Lily's teachers had filed a separate report after Lily came to class with unbrushed hair and no lunch for the 3rd day in a row. The dots were starting to connect. A few weeks later, the school held a meeting. Dave and his wife were there. So was the caseworker. So was I. Dave looked tired. His wife was shaking her leg under the table the whole time. I just want to say, Dave started, this whole thing has gotten out of hand. We're trying our best. The caseworker nodded politely. Your daughter deserves better than trying. There's a pattern of neglect here, and multiple witnesses to support it. They looked at me like I was the one on trial. I didn't care. The caseworker continued. At this point, we're considering placing Lily in temporary care with a relative. Ms. Reynolds, she looked at me, has already passed the initial background check. Dave's wife gasped. You can't just give her away like that. No one's giving anyone away, the caseworker said. We're trying to keep her safe. Lily wasn't at the meeting, but when I saw her at school the next day, supervised visit, she ran to me and said, Are you going to be my person now? I knelt down. I've always been your person. She hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. About a week after that school meeting, I got a knock at my door. It was Mark. He had a bag over his shoulder and this tired look on his face. We hadn't lived together in 2 months, he'd moved out after the miscarriage because, as he put it, we were drowning in the same grief and couldn't breathe around each other. But there he was. I heard what's going on with Lily, he said. I want to help. I let him in. We sat on the couch, no TV on, just the hum of the fridge from the kitchen. He didn't make excuses. He didn't pretend he'd been strong. He just said, I couldn't protect our baby. But maybe we can protect her. It was the first time I really looked at him and didn't feel resentment. I said, You're late. He nodded. But I'm here. And he stayed. 3 weeks later, there was a court hearing to discuss temporary custody of Lily. Dave and his wife showed up with a lawyer. They wore matching black clothes, like that was going to convince a judge they were serious parents now. My lawyer laid it all out, school absences, reports from the therapist, CPS documents, the dozens of missed pickups, and the testimony from Lily's teacher. Then it was my turn. I took the stand and spoke plainly. I'm not trying to steal their daughter. I'm trying to make sure she's not left crying on school steps at 5 p.m. or wondering why nobody shows up. I don't want to take over her life, I want to keep her safe until someone else proves they can. I didn't cry. I didn't look at Dave. I kept my eyes on the judge. Lily wasn't in the courtroom. She was waiting with a social worker in the hall. After a short recess, the judge granted me temporary custody. I was shaking when I signed the papers. Mark squeezed my hand under the table. A week after Lily moved in, something strange happened. She handed me a folded note one night before bed. I thought it was a drawing or maybe something for her therapist. But it was a letter. A letter her mom wrote to someone. Someone not Dave. It wasn't just gossip. It was proof. She'd been planning to leave Dave for over a year. The note mentioned waiting until Lily's old enough to take care of herself, and tired of being the one stuck with everything. I showed it to my lawyer the next day. It didn't just paint her as neglectful. It showed she was intentionally biding her time, barely doing the minimum, just waiting to walk away. When Dave found out his wife had been planning to leave him, he exploded. Not physically, but emotionally. He called me again, different tone this time. Did you know? Did you know she was cheating? That she wanted out? I didn't. But I wasn't surprised. She's been gone even when she was there, I told him. Same as you. He got quiet. You didn't just lose Lily to me, I said. You both lost her because you both made her feel invisible. He didn't deny it. Then my mom showed up. Unannounced. With a bag of groceries and a bottle of wine like it was some kind of normal family dinner. She came in, looked around, saw Lily's school projects taped on the fridge. This isn't your job, she said. You're making things worse. For who? I asked. For you? Because now you can't pretend everything's fine? She dropped the groceries on the counter. You always had a way of tearing this family apart. No, I said. You all tore it apart by staying quiet. She left. I didn't stop her. Lily came in a few minutes later and asked, was Grandma mad? She's confused, I said. Sometimes people act mean when they're confused. Lily nodded slowly. That's what my dad does too. A month into Lily living with me, things were calmer. Not perfect, but calmer. She was doing better in school. Eating regularly. Sleeping through the night. She even laughed again. Not polite laughs, real, belly-deep ones. It was like watching someone slowly come back to life. Then came the call. CPS again. They told me Dave and his wife had requested a formal hearing to regain full custody. They were challenging everything. Claiming I had brainwashed Lily. Said I manipulated the system out of jealousy. Jealousy. They were going to try to rip her away, again. Mark saw my hands shaking and said, then we fight. Harder. The hearing was held in a small courtroom. It smelled like old carpet and bad coffee. Lily was allowed to speak. The judge asked her if she felt safe, where she wanted to live, how things had been. She looked at the judge with those big eyes and said, at my aunt's, I have a toothbrush that's always there. I know what's for dinner. I sleep without crying. I want to stay. Her voice cracked. She wiped her own tears. I didn't breathe. Then they brought up the letter. The one her mom wrote. The cheating. The planning to leave. My lawyer made it clear, they didn't just neglect Lily, they were getting ready to dump her entirely. The judge looked exhausted. But he said the words I'll never forget, permanent guardianship will be granted to Ms. Reynolds. Dave stormed out. His wife didn't even look at Lily. My mom didn't show up at all. Mark and I walked out of that building with Lily between us, holding both our hands. In the weeks after, Lily's parents never called. Not even once. Not even on her birthday. But she had a party. At my house. A real one. With balloons and cake and a few of her new friends from school. We lit candles. She closed her eyes and made a wish. Later, when she thought I wasn't looking, I heard her whisper to Mark, I didn't wish for new parents. I already got them. I didn't burn their house down. I didn't scream in their faces. I didn't write them off the way they wrote me off. I just showed up. I stayed. I kept records. I followed through. And that was enough to win. Because while they laughed at my pain, I remembered everything. While they ignored a little girl, I gave her a home. They lost her not because I stole her, but because they didn't notice her slipping away. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's not dramatic. Sometimes it's just being better than they ever were. And never letting them forget it.